In a society where European powers were fighting for a footstool in a land that no one really had any claim to, in a society where religious persecution wasn't unheard of, Henry VIII would strive to split from the Roman Catholic Church in order to marry another woman for his wife. Hello, I am Will Shaw, and I am your host for this episode of Producing a Project. In the early 1600s, Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife, Catherine of Aragon, but the Roman Catholic Church would not allow him to do this. As it would turn out, this would have been the better choice, since he ended up killing his next wife anyway. Anyway, the Roman Catholic Church would not allow him to divorce his wife. And because of this, Henry decided to take matters into his own hand and created the Church of England. And out of this new Church of England came the Puritans. The Puritans were a sect of the Church of England who thought that Henry kept with too many of the Roman Catholic bases. And this led to many of the Puritans being persecuted throughout the England territory. Because of this persecution, it drove the Puritans to a sense of hysteria and drove them to settle in the New World. Due to some religious persecution in mainland England, many of the Puritans were driven to the New World. One of the most famous groups of the Puritans would be the Pilgrims. They came separate from the Great Migration of Puritans, and this group came on a boat called the Mayflower. They're probably most famous for setting up the holiday that we celebrated recently called Thanksgiving. Probably the more important one historically, the more important settlement, would be the settlement of Jamestown. Jamestown was set up in Jamestown, of course, and most of the houses would have been built of wood with thatch roof. The main export of Jamestown was tobacco, because much of Europe wanted this product. Despite all of the different places that the Puritans settled, Indians always played a major role. Whether they were helpful or whether they were a detriment to the society, one of the helpful things that the Indians did was teach how to raise corn in the new soil, which wasn't as fertile as the stuff in Europe. Now that the Puritans had their own land with religious freedom, they found it necessary to persecute the Dutch Reformed Church and the Quakers. Benjamin Franklin talks about this in his quote. If we look back into history for the characters of the present sects in Christianity, we shall find few that have not in their turns been persecutors and complainers of persecution. The primitive Christians thought persecution extremely wrong in the pagans, who practiced it on one another. The first Protestants of the Church of England blamed persecution on the Romish